the pattern beneath the promise, what your intuition has been trying to tell you. There is a particular kind of knowing that arrives before the evidence does. Before the proof, before the confession, before the moment when everything that was hidden finally becomes visible. It arrives quietly in the chest, in the space between words, in the slight shift of energy that no one else in the room seems to notice but you. And most people have been taught to dismiss it. You are overthinking. You are being dramatic. You are imagining things. But what if you were not? What if that quiet knowing, that persistent, uncomfortable signal, was not a flaw in your perception, but the most precise instrument you possess? Today, we explore 3 truths about patterns, excuses, and intuition. Not as accusations, not as instructions for suspicion, but as a gentle, honest guide for anyone who has ever known something and talked themselves out of knowing it. Part 1. Patterns speak louder than promises. Where to use this? When someone's words and actions are pulling in different directions, and you keep choosing to believe the words. There is a difference between what someone says and what someone does. And over time, that difference becomes the only honest measure of truth. Words are easy. They cost nothing. They can be arranged to sound like anything: commitment, love, reassurance, sincerity. But behavior is expensive. It requires consistency. It requires showing up in the same direction day after day, regardless of whether anyone is watching. And when words and behavior begin to move in different directions, the behavior is always the truth. Patterns do not announce themselves. They accumulate, quietly, gradually, in the small inconsistencies that seem individually explainable but collectively tell a story you were not meant to read. The availability that diminishes, the openness that narrows, the warmth that becomes periodic rather than constant. These are not isolated events. They are data. And when you begin to see them not as separate incidents but as a single, coherent pattern, something becomes clear that all the reassurances in the world cannot unclarify. Where to use this today? Think of a relationship, any relationship, not only romantic ones where something feels consistently off. Not dramatically, not explosively, just off. And ask, if I set aside everything that has been said and looked only at what has been done, what story does the behavior tell? The answer to that question is almost always more honest than the conversation you have been having. The danger of patterns is not that they are hard to see. It is that they become normal if you allow them to. Each small inconsistency explained away makes the next one easier to accept. Each red flag, reframed as a misunderstanding, lowers the threshold for the next one. And slowly, without a single dramatic moment, you find yourself living in a version of a relationship that is built on accommodation rather than truth. Do not let the pattern become the standard. Part 2. The truth hides in excuses. Where to use this? When every question you ask receives an answer that stops you from asking the next one. There is a particular kind of explanation that is not designed to clarify, but to end the conversation. It sounds reasonable enough to pause your questioning. It sounds just plausible enough to make you feel that perhaps you were wrong to ask. And the moment you stop asking it, has done exactly what it was designed to do. I was busy. My phone died. You always do this. Why don't you trust me? These phrases are not answers. They are deflections, carefully calibrated to redirect your attention from the question to your manner of asking it. Suddenly, the inquiry becomes the problem. Your need for clarity becomes drama. Your reasonable question becomes evidence of something wrong with you. That shift is not accidental. When someone has something to hide, the truth is a threat. And the quickest way to neutralize a threat is to make the person asking the questions feel that asking was the mistake. Where to use this today? Pay attention to how your questions are received in any relationship that matters to you. Not just romantic ones. In friendships, in professional relationships, anywhere trust is being negotiated. Ask yourself, when I ask something honest and reasonable, am I met with clarity or with something that makes me feel I should not have asked? Because a person with nothing to hide does not experience your curiosity as an attack. They experience it as reasonable, and they answer it. Simply, without performance, without the sudden shift, that makes you the problem. Excuses do not need to be elaborate to be effective. Some of the most powerful ones are the quietest. It's not what it looks like. 6 words designed to override everything you just perceived with your own senses. Not to explain, to replace, to tell you, do not trust what you saw. Trust what I am telling you instead. When you hear a version of those words, when your perception is being asked to yield to someone else's narrative of what you directly experienced, that is the moment to trust the perception rather than the narrative. Part 3. Your intuition is not drama. Where to use this? Every time you have felt something was wrong, and then explain to yourself why you were probably wrong to feel it. There is something that arrives before the evidence, before the proof, before the undeniable moment when what was hidden becomes unavoidably visible. It arrives in the body, in the chest, in the breath, in the quality of attention a moment receives from somewhere beneath conscious thought. Something is not right here. Most people have felt this, and most people at one point or another have talked themselves out of it. We are taught, subtly and persistently, that this kind of knowing is unreliable, that it is emotional, that it is subjective, that it is the product of anxiety rather than perception. But consider, how many times have you looked back on a situation and said, quietly, to yourself, I knew, not after the fact, before the evidence arrived, before anyone else saw it, before you had the language to name what you were sensing. You knew. And something, the need to be fair, the fear of being wrong, the desire to preserve something important, convinced you not to act on it. Where to use this today? Bring to mind any situation where you currently feel a quiet signal. Not alarm, not certainty, just the persistent, low-level sense that something is not as it appears. And ask yourself honestly, if I were advising someone I love who described exactly this feeling, what would I tell them? You would not tell them they are dramatic. You would not tell them to suppress it. You would tell them to pay attention. Do the same for yourself. Intuition does not come with a timeline or a guarantee. It does not arrive with proof attached. It does not explain itself. It arrives simply as a feeling that something is off. And that feeling deserves to be respected. Not obeyed blindly. Not used as accusation, but honored, as the signal of a mind that is perceiving something it has not yet had time to articulate. You do not owe anyone the suppression of your own knowing. You do not owe silence to a situation your whole self is quietly asking questions about. You do not owe blind trust when something in you is consistently, patiently, gently alerting you that trust may not be warranted. A relationship built on honesty does not require you to suppress your perception in order to survive. It creates space for your perception. It welcomes your questions. It offers clarity, because clarity is the natural consequence of having nothing to hide. Closing what you already know. Here is the quiet truth at the center of all of this. Most people already know what they most need to know. The knowing arrived early in the form of a feeling, a hesitation, a detail that didn't quite fit. And something love, hope, loyalty, fear convinced them to wait, to give it more time, to see if it would resolve itself. Sometimes it does, but more often, what waits for us is simply a clearer version of what we already sensed. So honor the signal, not with drama, not with accusation, with the quiet, self-respecting decision to take your own perception seriously. To treat your intuition not as a problem to be managed, but as a faculty to be trusted. To understand that the most important relationship in your life, the one that all other relationships ultimately rest upon, is the one you have with your own honest knowing. Tend to that first, and let everything else find its level from there.